Hi, I'm Jason.
And I'm Stephanie.
And this is Bible on Purpose.
On today's episode,
What if Jonah wouldn't have gotten thrown up, but rather came out the other end?
right?
But somebody said that they were...
Whatever it takes to get the kids paying attention.
That's right. But somebody had looked it up and said that whales, regardless what they're doing, they come to the surface.
Right. Okay, so today let's talk about Jonah and the whale. Was the whale really necessary to bring this story to life?
You're asking me, could there have been any other way?
Yes.
Or was the whale, like, that's how it had to happen?
Right. Is the whale how it had to happen? How important is the whale? You know, when you teach kids this story, it's the whale. Mm-hmm. It's not really, I mean, it is about Jonah, but it's about the whale.
Yeah.
So,
I've always wondered, why did God allow a storm to happen? Like, why couldn't he allow the storm to happen for a little bit, and then Jonah go, okay, we'll row back to shore, and I'll get off, and whatever. Then these guys can go do their thing. Why did the storm have to happen? And I think the answer is the storm had to happen so that Jonah would be thrown overboard, so that the whale could come.
Okay.
Which means the whale is very necessary to the story.
Okay.
So we need to go back to Jonah.
We do.
All right. So are you familiar with the story of Jonah much outside of what you read?
I am. However, I recently heard you do a message on it, and there were some things there that I had not been introduced to before.
Okay. So Jonah is from a place called Gath-Hepher, which is kind of near where Jesus lived. He grew up.
Okay.
So that's Nazareth.
Right.
And basically God calls Jonah to go and speak to the Ninevites. And Jonah, instead of going up to Nineveh, which, by the way, is kind of northeast of where he's from, he ends up traveling southwest. If you were to look at a map,
right,
he ends up traveling southwest down to a place called Joppa, I've heard it called Jaffa, or I've heard it called Yaffo, whatever. It's like modern day Tel Aviv.
Okay.
So if you're looking at a map, and Tel Aviv's along the sort of that west coast of Israel, the Mediterranean. So he gets on a boat, and he wants to go to Tarshish, which is where these merchants are going. That's where precious metals are in Tarshish. So they're doing silvers and golds and whatever, and precious metals. That's their cargo that they're taking on this boat. Now, I know the message that you're talking about, and I didn't mention this in the message, but they're traveling to Tarshish, and they have silver and gold and all that stuff. And as the storm hits, they're throwing all their cargo off into the water,
right? Okay,
to try to spare their lives, to try to save their lives. And so this is, now you see, like, they are getting rid of everything that their whole livelihood is going overboard right now. And so now they're wondering, like, how do we get this thing to stop? Who ticked off their God? And Jonah's asleep, and they go wake him up, and they're going, oh, dude. And so they cast lots to see who this falls on. And I have a sense that Jonah kind of knows. He's going, it's 100% me.
Right. And he's supposedly asleep while this is happening, but there's no way he's just casually taking a nap.
Well, he's down below.
Right. Which, quick side note about this, now that you said there's silver and gold and like precious metals on this ship or this boat, I imagine, and I mean, I've read this myself, but I imagine it took some convincing for them to even let him on board as like an outsider.
Potentially, but he paid a price.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's like, you know how well, not nowadays, but back in maybe the 1800s, like trains that would go from station to station, not only would they carry people, they would carry
Sure. Like cargo. Yeah.
Cargos, things like that. I'm wondering if that's the same thing. Like you could pay a fare to get on board.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
maybe.
travel along with these merchants who are also traveling to do their business.
Again, I never really thought about it like that. I always thought about it in the very basic sense of it's Jonah and these few people on this ship. Not many. You know, I'm thinking beginner Bible storybook picture.
Right.
There's like 5 men.
That's how we grow up with it.
Right.
Right. That's how we grow up with it. And we're looking at it going, I mean, I don't know how many men there were.
Right.
But
I certainly never knew there were silver and gold.
yeah. So that's what Tarshish was known for. Interestingly enough, a lot of people think that Tarshish was sort of way off in the West Coast.
Right. That's what I had read too, like 2,500 miles away.
Yeah. So we're looking at like Spain, somewhere in Europe, that area. They don't know that though. So it's also thought that Tarshish could be what was called Tarsus in Paul's time, where Paul was from. Remember Paul in the Bible?
Right.
And that's in modern day Turkey. So instead of going out west, taking the Mediterranean and going way out west, they were actually going to go up sort of north. Anyway, so they get on the ship, they're throwing the stuff overboard. They finally get to the point where they're like, who ticked off their God? They find out it's Jonah. And so they're trying to figure out what's happening here.
Now, when you say who ticked off their God, they all believed in our God?
Well, no, they all had their own God.
Their own God. So
Yes.
they just were, okay, which God is ticked off?
Yeah, so they're going, if you read the story, I think it's, well, it says, verse 7 in chapter 1, they said to one another, come, let's cast lots, so we may know who's caused this trouble, we may know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us. So they cast lots, and it fell on Jonah, and then they said to him, please tell us, for whose cause is this trouble upon us? What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What's your country? What people are you? And he tells them, I'm a Hebrew. I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Then they became afraid.
Okay. Because of who his God was.
Because of who his God was. And I have a sense, and it's not written in the story, and there could be people out there who could tell me different, and that's fine. But I have a sense that they all likely come from Israel.
Sure.
Whether or not they call themselves Jewish, or Hebrew or whatever, at some point you have to recognize that they are very, very familiar with
The God.
They're very familiar with Israel, and I almost wonder if they're not a part of Israel.
Okay.
And I mean, they're able to communicate very well with Jonah, who is probably speaking Hebrew, is my guess.
Sure.
But I mean, if you think about it, by that time they were allowing all kinds of foreign god worship. And so these guys were worshiping their own gods. Everybody had their own. And it wasn't like these men were friends over here and then Jonah all of a sudden comes on board. It's like every man for himself, every merchant for himself.
That's a new way for me to think about it too, because again, I've always thought of this story as this is a group of people who are sailing somewhere together. Like they're their own cohesive group themselves. Jonah was the outsider.
Yeah, no, here's a boat. It's going to Tarshish. Pay the fare. If you want to come on and do trade with people at Tarshish, then come aboard.
Okay.
And pay the fare. And that's why Jonah was able to get on so easily too, is that he could pay a fare and take the ride.
Okay.
So anyway, they throw him overboard after a lot of back and forth. and the storm calms. And then what happens?
Well, this is where the story gets good.
Yeah, does it?
Well,
Well,
I mean,
yeah. So along comes
this is the part we know.
Yes, along comes this great fish.
Yes.
And we translate it as whale. We don't know if it's whale.
Sure.
If it's whale, it's a prettier picture because when you think about a whale, like a whale is
graceful, or it seems
very
because they're so large.
mild-tempered.
Yeah, it seems like they just float.
Mm-hmm. They don't have teeth. They've got the bristly whatever.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And they just take in small fish and whatever else, and on their merry way they go. Mm-hmm. If it's not a whale, then it's a creature that's probably unknown to us, which I can't imagine. Also, we wouldn't know if it had teeth.
Right.
I think we probably think it's whale because Jonah gets swallowed whole.
Right. And stays whole.
He's pretty unscathed. And so I think that we interpret it as a whale. Now, the question comes, was the whale necessary for the story? Yeah. So for that answer, I think we have to go back to, we have to understand a little bit of the backstory with Nineveh. Nineveh was the capital, at that time, was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. And with the Assyrian Empire, because the Assyrian Empire was kind of like, it predates Babylon and all that in the sense that it was wanting to become a world power.
Now that I am interested in all of this, I really wish I'd have paid more of attention in history, like ancient world history. And
right.
I had two chances, both high school and college, and I blew it.
Well,
and now I'm like, dang it. I should have paid more attention. Anyway, carry on.
No, I'm with you. I find that I am more and more intrigued by history now than I was when I was a kid. It's not the have to, it's the desire.
I said it to a kid the other day who's currently taking said history classes. And I'm like, you realize that time frame that you're talking about is like Jesus's time. And they said to me, yeah, duh. Okay, moving along. Anyway, back to Assyrian Empire.
So the Assyrian Empire, they're trying to be a world power. And this has been going on for some time by this point. And originally they had a different capital, and they've been going through kings, and all these different things happen. By the time they get to this king, their original capital is done. And I think somebody came in and destroyed it maybe or something. But anyway, Nineveh becomes the capital, or they moved the capital to Nineveh. I don't remember how that all panned out. But they moved the capital to Nineveh. And these guys were at war with a lot of people around them. Again, because they're trying to dominate. But so up to that point, I think they had conquered, because Israel had divided itself into two kingdoms. You had the northern and the southern. Israel and then Judah. And then I think the Assyrian Empire had already by that point conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, which would have been the area where Jonah lived.
Okay.
So he knew all about it.
Right.
And he knew all about how they were treating the Jews.
Okay.
This is the thing that I never understood. Why did God have to say to Jonah? And I want to say this too. A lot of people think that Jonah isn't real, that it's just a metaphorical story or something to show.
Just a fairy tale.
Right. But Jonah is actually a prophet. He comes after Elisha. So you had the prophet Elijah, and then Elijah's taken up with the chariot, and then you have Elisha. And then after Elisha, Jonah's the one that takes that mantle or that calling, and he becomes the prophet. And you can read about that, I think, in 2 Kings. But
that makes sense, because that's the only other place Jonah's mentioned, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Well, other than the New Testament.
Right.
And it actually sort of references this story in 2 Kings, what Jonah did. But anyway, he God calls him, and I've never understood why God calls this Jewish man to go to this place where they hate Jews. They don't like them because they're trying to conquer these people, and they don't, there's obviously pushback and whatever. But yeah, he does. And until you read the story and you get to the whale and you get to sort of an understanding of who the Ninevites were, that you come to understand that the whale, Jonah, it's not that the whale had to happen. It did. But it had to happen because Jonah, it's almost like Jonah had to be disobedient. And when you get to that and you're going, well, Jonah didn't have to be disobedient. He could have obeyed God and gone. But I think God's greater plan was knowing that Jonah was going to be disobedient.
Sure. Like it shook up a whole lot more of the story in the details that he was disobedient.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but this whole story is about an investment. When you read through and you get to the end of chapter 4 and Jonah's whining and complaining about how God spared the Ninevites and God's saying to them, I have an investment with these people. You didn't create them, I did. And I have an investment here.
This is the part of the story that's a tiny bit humbling, don't you think? I mean, even for you and me or anybody that, he's whining and crying. Why did you spare the Ninevites? They're terrible, blah, blah, blah. Whine, whine, whine. But we do the same thing.
We do.
Very much so every day.
Absolutely we do. Well, okay, so the sailors. So he's on the boat with these sailors, which he pays really no attention to.
Right.
Until.
Right. And it kind of seemed like they didn't matter to him.
Right.
Like they're getting him where he wants to go.
Right.
But he cares very little about them.
Right. But God does.
Right.
So there's an investment there. And it says that they were afraid. And by the time the storm calmed, these sailors were praising God. So they kind of like, we recognize that that Jonah's God is.
Right.
He's powerful. Anyway, so then the whale takes him and he has 3 days in the belly of the whale. You know that whole story, which is crazy in itself. But then the whale vomits him up. And I didn't know this until you had done a youth lesson just the other day.
Yeah.
On Jonah. And we kind of tongue in cheek, we were joking about what if Jonah wouldn't have gotten thrown up, but rather came out the other end.
Right.
But somebody said that they were.
Whatever it takes to get the kids paying attention.
That's right. But somebody had looked it up and said that whales, regardless what they're doing, they come to the surface.
Right.
To do their business.
They do their business at the surface.
Yes. So Jonah, I mean, I'm just imagining this. Jonah's getting thrown up onto the shore. Some people say it's right back at the seaport where he started.
Really?
Some people say it's further on and then wherever. That God brings him back to where he was supposed to be. Regardless, somebody saw it.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Because you got to figure there are people all around for whatever, fishermen and other merchants, and especially if he was back at Seaport.
Right. Here's the guy.
Again, this is parts of the story that it's like you know it, but you don't really think about it that deep.
And there are people who are saying, I mean, we've heard modern stories of people actually now being swallowed by whales.
The guy on the canoe. I don't know where that was exactly, but that wasn't that long ago.
So it's not far-fetched. But also 3 days in the belly of a whale.
Yeah.
We're talking stomach acid. We're talking all different kinds of things. And I can only imagine what Jonah looked like coming out.
Right.
Anyway, somebody notices this. So here's this man coming out of this great fish. Now I'm going to pause here because we talked about whether or not it's a whale or whether it's a great fish. Some people actually think that it is Leviathan from the book of Job.
Okay.
Which would be very terrifying, by the way.
Yeah.
Regardless, the idea of a man coming out of a fish, especially back then, was huge. And I mean, I don't know about you, but news travels fast.
For sure.
And I imagine news traveled fast back then too. That had to have, because there were people who would hear of things far and wide. I mean, you read about it, in not just in the Bible, but in historical documents, where some nation over here was getting news or getting wind of something that happened way down south or whatever. And so news was traveling fast. And so here's this man who comes out of this fish, and he's going into Nineveh. Here's why that's important. The Assyrians had many gods that they worshipped as well. And one of them was Asher, which their original capital was named after. The other one was Dagon. Dagon was kind of like a merman in a way, like
Sure.
half man, half fish.
Yeah.
And there was a female goddess. I can never remember her name. I want to say it was like Nancy or something like that. But anyway, she's like the female version of Dagon. She's like this half woman, half. She's what you would think of as a mermaid.
Mermaid. Okay.
But then they also had mythological creatures that they believed in. I mean, we have Greek mythology today that we kind of,
Sure.
not that we necessarily believe in it. Maybe some people do.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead.
Again, just something that I wish I'd have paid more attention to.
Right, 100%. So these mythological creatures, they weren't. It wasn't beyond the realm of possibility for them to believe that they existed.
Sure.
And there was this one who was a Babylonian, it was Mesopotamian really, was this guy called Onus. And Onus is, if you're out there, Oannes, worth the look up. Onus is this guy who looks like the bottom half of him is a fish, and you can kind of see the upper half of his body and his head, but then sort of behind his head is a fish head. And so if you're to look at the image just as a whole, it looks like this man is coming out of a fish.
Coming out of a fish, it does. It looks like a man's, well, kind of like a mermaid almost, but it's like the fish is up. Like, it looks like those blankets that kids wear now with like the head and the arm. You can put your arms in it, but just like wraps around you. That's what it looks like.
So it's almost an image of this man who is coming out of a fish.
Yeah.
Okay, and so they would have believed this. And now here's this guy.
And you have to imagine that he's like dripping with all kinds of like disgusting goo and seaweed and whatever else also that also makes him look like a fish.
Right. Right. So he comes and he goes into Nineveh now because God's kind of got him back on the path and he's repented. He comes into Nineveh, and Nineveh, they said, is a 3-day walk.
3 days, huh?
3 days to get through that whole town. Now, I don't know if that's weaving in and out or if that's just a straight walk. But day one, he gets into town and he starts preaching, and the whole town knows. Even the king comes and he says, we're going to proclaim a fast. We're going to pray. We're going to, whatever. And maybe God will be gracious. And so why did they listen to Jonah day one? Here is this Jewish guy who they hate. And he comes in and he preaches that his God's going to destroy this city in 40 days. They don't recognize his God. Why?
Because he looked like a fish?
This guy, the news of this guy had to travel. This guy come out of a fish.
Right.
And he looks like
Onus.
He looks like that guy. So was the whale necessary, or the fish, or whatever it was it necessary to the story? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why? I think it was something that I think it allowed the Ninevites to really pay attention and take him seriously.
It caught their attention, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
I like it.
So did Jonah have to do it? Did Jonah have to be obedient? In the end, yes, God brought him to obedience, which was what my message was.
Yeah.
God brought him to a place of obedience and surrender and all of that. But I don't think God was ever surprised by Jonah's disobedience. Now, there can be people out there who will say, well, God could have gotten it done no matter what. Yeah, he could have. I don't believe, though, that he was waiting on somebody to be faithful. I believe that he said, I have chosen Jonah, and Jonah's going to be the one to do this, and I will bring him to a place where he does it.
Listen, that goes back to the stuff we talk about with like you and I or people we know, and he's going to make it happen, whether that's what you want to happen or what you want to do. He's going to equip you, whether that's what you really desire.
Right. Right. He equips the called. He doesn't call the equipped. He's not waiting.
Right.
And by equipping people, I think that he brings people to that place of surrender and that place of obedience.
Yeah.
But he uses every little detail. I don't think that, I think God, for a lack of a better way to say it, killed 3 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
He got Jonah to a place of obedience. He saved the sailors.
Yeah.
And he saved the Ninevites. And I don't believe that was happenstance. I don't believe that was
wasn't
plan
an
B.
accident. No.
That was
always the plan.
That's why I think God was banking on Jonah's disobedience. He already knew it. And I believe that he had every provision ready.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, there you go.
And that's the story of Jonah.
That's the story of Jonah. There's also so much more, I feel like, that you can dig into there, and you think, well, it's a very short book in the Bible, and like it's pretty concise, and like here it is. But I don't know. I think there's a whole lot more you could really dig into if you wanted to, as far as like grace and extending grace and the grace that had been extended, and that Jonah had seen all these terrible things that were happening along the way before he even got on the ship. And, grace had been extended to him, and he'd seen grace extended to all these people doing terrible things. And then, he ends up and he doesn't want to give any grace to the Ninevites. He doesn't want to deal with them or whatever. And I just think that's interesting. There's just so many more layers to it than what we grow up knowing about Jonah and the whale.
Right. Well, we get it dumbed down for when we're kids.
Right.
Something that we can process and learn in a Sunday school setting.
It's a small bite.
Yeah. But
no pun intended.
Nope. Always.
I really didn't do that on purpose.
We're going to take this hole.
Man, that was a deep dive into Jonah, fans.
Oh my God. Fair enough. Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
All right.
You've been listening to Bible on Purpose with Jason and Stephanie. Join us next time.